the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, Madam Clerk, I would like to establish that there is a quorum present. Can you confirm there is a quorum?
I confirm there is a quorum present.
Thank you. And the minutes from the previous meeting, November meeting, were circulated. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes from the November meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
I'm sorry. Did I hear you say December meeting?
November meeting.
All right.
Okay. So, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. So the minutes passed. Next on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address council? Okay. Please step up to the podium. And Kathleen, if you'd say your name and your address for council.
Hello, everyone. Hello, I'm Kathleen Maynard, Kathleen Stewart Maynard, specifically, 715 Greenville Avenue. I want to thank you all very much. I'll keep this short and probably read it because you said 5 minutes. So,
Yes,
Thane wishes he could be with me tonight, with all of you tonight, but he's out of town in a meeting. So, the first thing I'd like to say is this is about the Greenbelt issue. Mike was very kind to meet with us and talk about some of the details of what is being planned and what has been addressed. So, but let me reinforce that Thane and the resources at the zoo are available if necessary for any tree or arboretum, any questions you might have. And one of the reasons that that is important is that the zoo was recognized in July, on July 11th, 2023, as one of the first and only arboretum within the zoo. And so we have great resources there, and that's not just in this country, it's in the world. So we asked Steve Foltz to come meet with some of you, and what he found in the Greenbelt, he was astounded by the maturation and the quality of the trees there. And so I want to say I so appreciate going on the record, and I'll take about 5 minutes. I have two concerns about the plan to use the Greenbelt as a retention for water. My first concern is historical, and it is imbued with all that I learned and heard as I grew up in this village. My parents grew up here and were lifelong residents. I was born here. That's over 100 years of history standing here with me tonight. The story that I heard over and over again as I grew up was that the committed village residents, council members, and Mayor Jim Carruthers most particularly, were to be lauded for what they had done when they created the Greenbelt. It was visionary. Glendale, as stated by the Society of Architectural Historians, is the first planned community in Ohio and perhaps the nation. The Greenbelt became a significant part of that planning, as can be seen in a photo, which I have here, which was provided to us, and it shows you the origins of those trees, which were very planned. Those are not just trees that came up out of nowhere. But little did they know how significant that Greenbelt would be. It is now the only thing keeping the push of industry at bay. Without it, those hideous factories, their noise and their lights would be directly on Oak Street. The Greenbelt and its trees should be protected as it was intended. It is our inheritance. It is what we all have left from that planned vision. It keeps Glendale, Glendale. The residents who live on the streets by the Greenbelt will have their view and quality of living sorely impacted by the loss of any of those glorious mature trees because they block the lights and the ugly buildings when they are leafed out. In the short run, planting young trees will never replace what we stand to lose. My second concern is with the plan itself because we have a property situation at stake. Thane and I began looking to buy a house here in spring of 2020. On May 19th, 2020, there was a devastating storm that flooded Glendale. I have a quote about that. The village of Glendale experienced severe flooding early Tuesday morning, according to Walter Cordes, the village administrator. Although conditions were improving, the large amount of water was overwhelming the village, he said. So obviously that water issue was there before the Bethany School, which you all are addressing. That specific flooding predates the situation, as I said, is being addressed currently. Bethany parking lot may be adding water because of the impermeable parking lot, but it did not create the situation. It was already here. We actually looked at a property on Albion in the late spring of 2020, soon after that storm, and we chose not to move forward because of all the water damage we saw. We then purchased 715 Greenville in July of 2020, and we did not understand, it was not disclosed, how much water that house takes on.
You have about a minute.
Since then, we have experienced flooding over and over again. I'm worried that if more water is held on the east side of the tracks, and we're on the west side of the tracks, the power of water being held there might cause an even bigger issue. So I'd ask you to be very conservative when you're thinking about these things. I think you've done a lot of work with Bethany in order to address something. Why not let that play out a little bit and see where the science takes you and the data from that before you impact a very, very important part of the village of Glendale, which is the Greenbelt. I think it should be really honored and not touched. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, are there others in the audience who'd like to address council?
Name is Kevin Parrish, resident of Village of Glendale at 176 Washington. As to the Greenbelt issue, I think you guys got residents disillusioned that any decision made on the Greenbelt will become before the council of the Village of Woodlawn, since they have control of that land. And since we have not made any relationships with them, I don't think anything's gonna happen as far as developmental purposes. We bought that land, but it's in the Village of Woodlawn. Anyway, you keep selling the fact that you're gonna develop it and you haven't even talked to Woodlawn. But I'm not here to discuss that. I'm here to discuss August 18th spiel that we had in the Village of Glendale. On that date, Mayor Lofty went on social media and made a comment as to how we responded and that we would get updates as to the disposition of that. It's been 15 weeks later as of the 1st, and not once have we had any information about that spill in the newsletters. 15 weeks. Not only that, September 13th, we had another spill. No information at all to residents as to anything that you profess for honesty and transparency. I've asked for information concerning the CMOM and the monthly reports that you guys forward. You say it's on the website and yet it's not obtainable. I don't understand why David won't put a link for residents to be able to get this public information easily. The same with the audit report that just came out December the 1st. Should put a link out so residents can see the status of our report card following this audit. It makes for an amazing short story reading. As far as the CMOM and the strategic plan, residents don't even know what you're talking about because you haven't given them information or any links for them to see the information that shows the progress or the lack of progress of where we're going and trying to address the wastewater treatment plant issues and the water issues we have in this village, which are very profound and astounding. We have devastating side effects from this, and you guys treat it as not a priority. They've been telling you about this situation for more than two decades, and we've made little progress into addressing the water issues. I've come to this council for more than 6 years and brought issues of water to this council, and you've done nothing. You need to stop lying to people about Summit Park. If Summit Park is so usable, why are they using Washington Park so much? Put the records of who's reserving the park. That should tell in itself what's going on with Summit Park. But if you don't believe me, come spring, take your kids up there and put them in shorts and let them run through the grass up there. I'm quite sure it won't take long for white kids to have the side effects of what mosquitoes do. But that would tell the story of who's lying about Summit Park. It's been determined as being a swamp area, and yet you've got the manholes from the entryway of Summit all the way to Van Ness blocked and has been blocked for 6 years, and you've done nothing about it. In negotiations with the Brock Foundation, you got into negotiations with him to collaborate to fix that issue, but you found out how expensive that project would be.
You have about a minute.
We have a lack of communication in this community, and we have a bigger problem with the racism that has affected people's judgment. If you pay more attention to the facts that I bring to this council instead of the color of my skin, maybe you might be more aware of the pitiful condition our administration is in. We will be going back into the Court of Claims once again for the third time because of public records, I would just say, selective distribution. The wastewater treatment plant and the utilities operators report is just contradictory if all he does is give two numbers, not report any bypasses or overflows for the month. But that is what you want us to believe. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Is there anyone else that wishes to address council? Seeing no one else, we'll move on to new business. So the first ordinance we have this evening is 2023-59, an ordinance authorizing amendment of the 2023 appropriations of the general fund and declaring an emergency. Is there a motion for this ordinance?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. David, can you take us through this and tell us what's going on with this one?
Certainly, thank you. So this ordinance has two amendments to the general fund for 2023. Both of them will be included in the final appropriations for 2023, which is coming up as Ordinance 62 this evening. The first is an increase to public lands and buildings for $17,000. That was authorized by the Glendale Community Improvement Corporation through its lease negotiations with the upcoming tenant at 38 Village Square as a renovation reimbursement, which is they're putting a tremendous amount of work and money into turning that space into their own. And through the lease negotiations, the CIC agreed to provide that $17,000. That appropriation would fund that expense. The terms of the lease are very, very beneficial to the village. Over the course of its 7-year term, that the village will be netting over the course of the lease about $35,000 a year in revenue minus operating expenses, property taxes, and this reimbursement. So it's a good deal for the village. The second is the transfer of funds from the general fund to VPGI totaling $225,000. This amount represents the interest earned in the general fund in 2023 that would be transferred into VPGI to keep that fund operational and progressing and not touching the principal, so to speak. The interest that's been received here is received both on our investments and in our checking account as well. Thank you.
So is there any discussion about this ordinance?
Question. David, do I understand, and did I hear you say this is to transfer the interest amounting to $225,000 from the general fund into VPGI?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, discussion? So we have a motion for the ordinance. Should I take the motion to dispense with three
Yeah,
reads?
do that
Okay.
first.
Is there a motion to dispense with 3 reads?
So moved. Second.
Second. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
For ordinance 2023-59, to dispense with the 3 reads, Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemith,
Yes.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
For ordinance 2023-59, Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemith,
Yes.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good. The next ordinance is ordinance 2023-60, an ordinance authorizing amendment of the 2023 appropriations of the Glendale Family Fund and declaring an emergency. Is there a motion for this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
And is there a motion to dispense with three readings?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Thank you. David, can you tell us about this ordinance?
Sure. This ordinance is to increase the amount of money available in the Glendale Family Fund, which with our transition to UAN is now its own separate fund. It used to be combined with the rest of the community fund, but now that it's been broken out, we can track its performance isolated from the rest of that community fund. I will turn it over to Chief Walsh to talk, if I may, about a little bit about the program and who it'll benefit and those sorts of things.
This will go to providing Christmas to 26 families, all local Glendale kids from Glendale Elementary, as well as we're going to assist the city of Springdale, who are also taking 20 Glendale kids on a different day. So we're going to do it twice. Ours will be held at the Walmart in Evendale on the 15th of this month. If anybody would like to join us, we'd be more than happy to have you.
So Chief, you're accepting donations.
We're accepting donations.
support
This
of
will
this
be to
fund.
offset anything that we don't get. We're asking for donations for Walmart gift cards and Chick-fil-A gift cards. I will say the 26th individual is a young, what is he, 5 months, 4 months? Sure. 4 or 5 months old. He is on life support here in the village.
Oh, shoot.
And his mom and dad are gonna bring him out on the 15th to the Evendale Walmart so he can go shopping with us.
Okay. So donations are being accepted, and those can be sent to the village office
Village office
or the police
department.
station? Okay, that's great. Very good. All right, we have a motion for the ordinance and dispense with the three reads. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
For ordinance 2023-60, to dispense with the three reads. Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
For ordinance 2023-60, Ms. Duke.
No.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next ordinance is ordinance 2023-61, an ordinance authorizing amendment of the 2023 appropriations of the Village Plan and General Improvement Fund and declaring an emergency. David, again, will you give us an update on this ordinance?
Yes, thank you. Ordinance 61 is an increase to the appropriations of the VPGI fund. The bids for the redesigned retention pond came back at a much more manageable cost than originally bid, and that's thanks a lot to Kleiner's revised design. The winning, or the apparent low bidder, was Stauffer Site Services at $158,450. This increase matches with existing stormwater project funds for a Greenbelt stormwater project that were appropriated in the 2023 budget at the beginning of the year. So we're basically filling up what's left for the cost of this contract, and through that course of that project, hopefully will be approved later this evening in an upcoming ordinance.
This ordinance is related to 2023-63, where we would actually approve
That's correct.
the work. I might think I'd like to take a moment, if I'm allowed, if I may, and ask a question about the project itself ahead of reading the ordinance. Is that appropriate
Yes.
to do? Okay. So this is related to 61, which is the appropriation for the money, but also 63, which is the actual work to be done. And one of the speakers tonight asked the question, is the work on the east side of the tracks to build the pond, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to ask it, will that have a negative impact on the west side of the village, or is this simply designed to reduce the amount of water or that flows out, or control and meter the amount of water flowing into the creek on the east side? Is it anticipated there'll be any negative impact on the western side?
So based on all of the engineering calculations that have been presented to me and to the Streets Committee, no. The east side of the tracks won't be negatively impacted by the installation of this pond.
The west side?
I'm sorry, the west side, yes,
Okay.
the west side. The water that flows under the railroad tracks just south of Oak will continue to do so, and will actually have an improved and expedited pathway to the pond now, which will hopefully alleviate and eliminate some of those flooding concerns on the west side of the tracks. I wanted to, if I may, address another
Sure.
point that was brought up by a member of the public, that Woodlawn was not informed of this work. That is untrue. Several conversations with the city manager, the village manager in Woodlawn regarding this work, and Woodlawn has no issue with us proceeding. So, this project has been well documented, well researched, and well reviewed by a number of parties.
Question, David.
Yes.
Headquarters for Stauffer, where are they?
I believe they're out of Morrow,
Okay,
Ohio.
But they're local.
Yeah, they're local,
Okay.
and our engineer contacted several of their references, and they all gave outstanding
Thank you.
reviews. So, very
Okay.
excited to work with them, hopefully.
But do you recall if the engineer discussed with you or anyone else at the village a lawsuit for wrongful death or whatever that had been initiated against Stauffer Site Services?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
All right. I just came across it by Googling to find out something about the firm, the company.
Okay.
Did you obtain references for the firm?
Yes, the firm submitted references as part of their bid, and those references came back as good. They had very good opinions of Stauffer.
Okay.
Hey, David, how much lower is this bid from the one we discussed?
Almost $1 million.
And remind me.
Orders of magnitude.
It's orders of magnitude less work.
Yes.
If you
That one
recall,
The
Million.
previous bids went from 600 to 1.2.
But,
And-
yeah, but to be fair,
How?
this
Well-
is less work and less benefits than what was originally.
Well, the benefit of it is actually we did reach in the original design almost a point of diminishing returns as far as the amount of earth that we were moving. This design does create a better situation upstream, which is the whole purpose of this pond, is that when we have stormwater flowing through the Hedgerow and Albion systems more quickly into the pond, if we're unable to control the creek, then those systems are going to overwhelm the houses north of Albion. So Warwick, East Willow, Cleveland, Little Creek, those areas are going to be overwhelmed by the amount of water that's entering the creek at Albion. So this pond helps to regulate that, so that by the time that everything is installed and functioning, there will be no increased negative impact. In fact, the situation will be improved. Now, of course, I will add the caveat that given a torrential storm, I mean, there's only so much that these storm systems are able to do, and I think we've kind of discussed that ad nauseum in the Streets Committee. But these systems are purposefully designed to improve the flow of stormwater in the area.
Are you able to put the map up on the?
I'm
I don't
not,
think we can.
but
I can
okay.
pass around what is.
Everybody should have a handout.
Everybody's seen it? Have you?
Are you-
Do you have? Okay,
Yeah, I have it.
a
We have
copy?
Yeah.
Are you able to
Good.
show?
So that's the same as what everyone has.
Are you able to verbally explain how this is different from the one we
I
saw?
can do it really quickly. The previous one, a very, very large area was pond, and it was orders of magnitude larger than this. What this design does is it has two smaller ponds, roughly 90 feet in diameter is the largest of the two. And it takes advantage of the low-lying nature of the land. And right now, in a torrential storm, that will fill up and water will actually cross over Oak Road. It fills up. it will fill up much the same, but the two ponds will help to retain some of the water and direct some of the water so that we'll be able to control the stormwater flow into that creek a lot better. And as David mentioned, it should also help water flowing from the west side below the tracks and from the west side below the tracks near, closer to Goodwill, right along Oak Road. Should help that water be able to flow into that area and be held in that area. So it's almost the same net effect from how much does it help upstream as the previous. A negligible difference, a matter of maybe an inch or so. However, we're not displacing all the trees with one large pond. It's two smaller ponds. And from the drawing, I don't have it in front of me, but I've kind of got it memorized in my brain now. There are two significant trees that may be lost as a result of this. And I see three significant trees that could be lost as a result. Two of which we might be able to avoid. The two that where you see the water or the swale coming from Oak Road and down into the proposed Phase 1 pond. Those two trees we might be able to direct and maybe avoid and have some luck with that. But that's a kind of a contractor question.
Sorry. Will.
It's nothing close to remember the
50.
Yeah, the streets
Yes.
meeting you had was even higher than that, wasn't it?
If you look at where it says on Oak Road, where it says Oak Road, and then looks like 60 feet RW,
Yep.
the pond went from about that point all the way to the track.
It was a rectangle.
Okay.
And it was just a big rectangle, and that was the engineer's best effort to
Get the
hold back as much
capacities.
water as possible, and we sent them away and said we need a different plan.
So this design compared to the previous design was something in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 trees that would have to be removed. In this design, we're closer to 10 or 15, and a vast majority of those are dead or scrub or small trees that were not intentionally planted or were not purposely designed. Three of them are of some value, and we'll work with the contractor to preserve them as best as possible. But also, too, is the work that will come in the next few years once this is established to improve the plantings in that area, to restore the visual buffer, even though it's, in my opinion, its negative impact of removing that buffer is going to be pretty tremendously minimized compared to the original design, because a lot of the trees are being left in place. So new plantings plus protection of existing plantings is going to be, I think, a benefit, plus all, of course, the stormwater improvements.
Okay, for the benefit of the resident on Greenville, you mentioned this is Phase 1, so there is a potential for Phase 2 that would actually be on the west side that the engineer had looked at also to address future
For that,
needs.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could we speak to the concern that Ms. Maynard had about doing this before we've seen the results of the work at Bethany, and how that plays into this plan?
So I think Bethany's doing a tremendous amount of work on the northern half of their property and adding a series of bioswales that will do a lot to control the flow of stormwater off their property. This is actually an improvement or a solution to work that the village itself is doing on Hedgerow and Albion. It's restoring existing stormwater systems that are clogged or collapsed or flat out not functional or not present. Additionally, we're installing curbing on the west side of Hedgerow to catch water that runs off. So I would say that no matter what Bethany's improvements are, and I imagine that they'll be plentiful, there's still a tremendous amount of water in that area, and it'll still be entering the village's new stormwater system, which for development we'll be working on in January. And then it will enter that creek, which requires the regulation of the flow of that creek through this retention pond.
I apologize, I meant to say the hedgerow
you're good.
project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking at the hedgerow project still being completed before this?
No, I don't anticipate that will be the case. I think both projects will complete about the same time. The hedgerow work will begin in January and is significant, 6 to 8 weeks worth of work. This is a fairly straightforward and simple
I'll bet 4
enterprise.
is 3 months. Minimum. I'll bet Ford Development's work is 3 months.
Yeah.
minimum, maybe
That's what
4.
they told us, so we'll see how that
Yeah.
goes. But no, the pond will be a very, in the scheme of things, simple and straightforward project.
I might also say, David and I have discussed, there will be much discussion with contractors and engineers, and you will see ugly orange construction fence all over the green belt, protecting the trees and making sure that we have a very nice visual barrier. We're well aware of the construction companies. You know, the name of the game there is get in and out as fast as you can and not necessarily pay attention to the world around you. We'll make sure they understand the importance of all the trees in that area. Any other questions about this? I kind of jumped ahead because they're linked, and before we make appropriations, I want to kind of understand where people's heads are. Okay.
So this would be 62,600 for this budget year
For 2023,
out of our general fund.
out of VPGI.
VPGI,
From
okay.
VPGI.
Yep. And then the balance of a little over 97,000 will be coming from a previously appropriated stormwater projects fund.
So we'll be increasing by 62,000.
Yep.
Not the full 158.
Yeah, the bill will be split between the two.
The other already exists.
Yep.
So I don't know if I had a motion for this ordinance or not.
You do not.
I do not.
You do
Okay,
not.
so is there a motion for ordinance 2023-61?
So moved.
Second.
And is there a motion to dispense with the 3 reads?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
For ordinance 2023-61, to dispense with the 3 reads. Ms.
No.
Duke? Ms. Masenko?
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth?
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler?
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige?
Aye.
Okay. And the ordinance?
Do we have a supermajority with a no vote on the 3 reads? We do
No,
not.
we do not. We need 5 for that.
Yeah.
You need 5 out of
So-
5 when
Yep,
someone's
yes.
missed.
So we cannot dispense with the 3 readings.
Is the, is time of the essence with this?
Time is somewhat of the essence with this. This project works, as David had mentioned, works together with the work on Hedgerow and Albion. Again, in a nutshell, we will be improving along Hedgerow on the west side of that street where the residents are, the stormwater lines and the curbing, and we'll be improving stormwater lines on Albion on the north side of the road. And that will have the effect of getting the water where it needs to go, but it could speed the water up. And I don't know that for a fact. The engineers have said it could speed the flow of water up a certain amount. Now, there is some help with offset because Bethany is capturing water in swales on their property. So there will be less water entering our storm system unless there's a major event, where I think Bethany's is designed to capture 2 inches of rainwater. So when we get into these 3-inch torrential downpours, it will definitely leave their system. But I believe the 2-inch in their mind was something in the range of 90% of rains. They'll capture everything that comes off of their property and their swales. So to the point of the work in the Greenbelt, if we get that torrential rain and our system is flowing water more quickly, there is potential that people along Hedgerow, but in particular Albion, and then flowing north towards Sharon Road, the water could just get to the creek more quickly. And if we don't have a damper in the Greenbelt to slow the water at the origin, that's where we could have a somewhat of a negative impact. So it's kind of a 3-legged stool. It's Bethany's work, it's our work in the Greenbelt, and it's also our work to improve the stormwater infrastructure on Albion and Hedgerow. And that's why we would want to be able to dispense with 3 reads and move on immediately, because we don't want to hold up Ford Development's work. And it would be great if we could have some of this in place by the spring rain. So
With
Yes,
this
that long way
with-
to say that time is of the essence.
With this delay, is the contract in jeopardy?
Yes, without the appropriations, I am unable to sign the contract with the contractor.
And this is a part of the appropriations
Yes.
for developments work?
No, for developments work is fine, that's
Right.
moving forward. This is the appropriations for Stauffer's
For
site
Stauffer's work,
services
right.
work. Without those appropriations, then I'm unable to sign the contract.
You can't sign that, and then
Correct.
we risk then not having
increase.
the entire system built at the same time.
Or an
Correct.
increase in the contract come
Or
January?
needing to rebid if time expires, or whatever multitude of things could take place, not to mention like you said, the delay in proceeding with this work had been discussed, I believe, for over 2 years through the Streets Committee, and we've had probably some of the busiest committee meetings that I've ever seen in
We
the Streets
have,
Committee.
yes, with 40 people attending.
So from my own perspective, it would be disappointing to see us get so close and then fail.
Okay, so that is the situation.
Kathy, if we had 6 council members here, would it would still need 5
Yes.
for the 3 reads
Yes.
to bypass the?
5.
5 votes for 6 council members. With time being of the essence and understanding that, is there any change of mind on this particular issue?
No,
No.
my concern has not been met. It has not been addressed.
What is the
And I
concern,
think it
if I
is
may
very
ask?
important,
Yes.
and it cannot be addressed this evening. And that is the due diligence in looking into Stouffer Site Services LLC as a contractor for the village.
Did you look into that and
He
get
has said
references?
that he did not discuss the lawsuit that had been filed against Stouffer, and that Stouffer has received very good references.
Were there any negative references?
No,
I
Okay.
wouldn't expect there to be negative references.
there were not.
Um,
There were not.
And I would expect a contractor to put forth their best references. I think it's the obligation of the village to do a little bit of due diligence. And if I could go online and find a little bit of information about this, I think that certainly it's worth a while to find out a bit more about it.
To
I don't
inform-
know anything about Stouffer Site Services, but I have cause to vote no at this time.
To inform council, the second lowest bidder was Evans Landscaping.
For how much?
I believe they were in the 160s, 170s for the total. cost of
Evans
the
has
project.
had some very serious problems, ethical
Absolutely.
issues.
Founder in jail,
Yeah.
minor.
What's the
The-
date on the
The next,
litigation?
Well,
Wait. It could be 20 years ago.
No,
Well,
it's not.
The last decision was, that I'm seeing,
2020.
was one, I'd have to see if there was an appeal to the Supreme Court, but the 12th
Correct.
Appellate District opinion from 2020, after a full review of the record, we find the trial court properly granted summary judgment on all claims in favor of Stouffer, John, and Jack. Essentially find no liability, but I don't know if that was appealed. I don't know that that's the final
And I don't either.
decision.
and this was an appellate court that made that
Yeah,
ruling?
that's the 12th. You've got your common pleas and then your 12th District Court of Appeals, and that was this one. And then if there was anything,
Okay,
it would have been after that.
so it's been
Try to pull that up.
two, one the trial court and the appellate court have both found in favor of
Stauffer.
As a matter of law, on a summary judgment.
on the summary judgment.
They
Correct.
did not dispute the fact that a man had died during the course of a, and I don't want to go into a lot of details on the record.
Sure,
because I don't
understand,
know.
understand.
But when I read it, it seemed very, very similar to what we would be engaging Stouffer Site Services to do,
Mhm,
to cause me to pause.
mhm. Okay.
And I don't do this lightly.
Mhm.
I've been sitting in the same meetings, by and large, with the rest of council,
to
and then some.
to let everyone know, I would like to go through the bid results if I could to inform council of
Would
the
you,
other options.
And before you do that, is there a time limit on accepting this bid?
There is 60 days.
Wow.
Well,
The other thing that I would caution council, and I'm not an attorney and I'm not the engineer, but I will caution council that when it comes to rejecting the lowest and best bidder, there is a certain standard that needs to be provided. I don't believe, from my own perspective, and I may be incorrect, but I don't believe that based on the results of the cases as they've been read to us tonight, that speculation over some wrongdoing would suffice to reject their bid.
And our engineer has already wholeheartedly recommended them.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a point in their favor.
Mr. Bessel,
To,
you have 60 days to reconvene council, to reconsider this. My term on council ends at the end of this month. So I am not prepared, nor will I be bullied or pushed
no one's trying to bully or push.
into changing
we are
my
actually,
vote
no,
tonight.
no one's trying to bully or push. We are trying
you.
to figure out where we stand based on this particular issue and what the ramifications are for the village in any manner that we would move forward. And with the next meeting in January,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
You can schedule a special meeting.
we could schedule a special meeting and then do it that way. Again, does council, well, let's not get into that at the moment.
Mr. Vice Mayor, when did the 60-day clock start?
When the bids were opened on November 17th.
That was a question I was gonna ask.
So we could make it on the 8th.
When the bids are open.
We could make it on the 8th then.
The 8th of
I haven't,
January.
I'll be honest, I haven't counted the days, but
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
but you could make the 8th of January.
And then get beyond this point.
Excuse
Right.
me, Mr. Vice Mayor, will we have 6 voting people in
That's-
January?
You're following my thought process. So you said whether we have 6,
Five
we
votes
have to
to
have
waive
5 votes to read to waive the 3 readings. So,
But you could hold a special meeting to have a second reading,
yeah.
so that even if there's no ability to, you don't need to waive the 3 reads in January at all, if that's the 3rd reading.
If that's the 3rd reading, yes.
Yeah, so even if it's just a meeting to convene for the second
For
reading.
the second read, I'm following your logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do
Just to
that.
be-
Okay.
So, to clarify, for the purposes of our January meeting, 5 council members would be considered a complete council?
No, it would still be
You
5.
have to have 5 votes and
Wait,
to waive the 3 reads. So that's possible. The other way is to have a special meeting in December where we hear this and then have the 3rd read in January. For now, this serves then as the first read,
Okay.
and that is for 2023.6-61. The next ordinance is 2023-62. And bear with me a minute while I pull that one up. An ordinance approving the final 2023 appropriations of all funds and declaring an emergency. David, will you give us some information on this one?
yes, before we do need to go in and make one change on Exhibit A to reflect the not ordinance 2023-61 not passing. That would be on page of the example, 1, 2, 3, where we see total village plan, it's a typo there, plan and general improvement fund, as well as the capital projects fund, both need to be reduced by $62,600. So I
Okay.
will give you the totals here in just a moment. So the total village plan and general improvement fund total should read $2,400,268.68, and And then the capital projects fund should read 600 should read 2,467,268.68
Great, thank you.
We would do a motion to amend and a vote.
Yes, thank you. So, since we've made that change, as Kathy pointed out, we'll have a motion to amend. Is there a motion to make that amendment to the attachment Exhibit A of 2023-62?
So moved.
Second?
All right. And do we have to do a voice vote on that?
A roll call.
Do
A
roll
roll
call.
call vote? Madam Clerk, please.
Okay. To amend Exhibit A of 2023-62, Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, now, is there a motion for the ordinance 2023-62?
Motion for the waive the reads on this one.
No, but we'll do the motion for the ordinance, then waive the reads?
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
Okay, so is the
So
motion?
move for the ordinance.
Okay,
Second.
and then a motion to dispense with the 3 reads.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, David, will you take us through this?
Yes, thank you. So this ordinance is, does not alter appropriations any further than they've already been changed by council throughout the year. So this total for each line includes the 2023 budget total that is, again, as we've gone through the budget process, is based on the structure of the budget in 2022 to 2023, plus any changes made throughout the year that were approved by council. And then it also includes the 2022 encumbrances that were carried into 2023. The purpose of this is pure housekeeping to make sure that all of the totals are properly passed and recorded, and then this will be sent down to Hamilton County to make up our final appropriations for 2023.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions about this ordinance? Any discussion?
I actually do have one.
Oh, gee.
If you have the special meeting, if that were to pass
We would need to amend appropriations again.
Two.
We would need to pass this again.
versus if the special meeting's in January prior to the 8th,
It would be a 24 appropriation.
and so that, okay.
Correct.
So
Then
that's
we
Yeah.
would
something
be
to think about
okay, and we would
timing-wise.
leave this alone. Okay,
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's an easy enough change, whichever
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
we choose. Very good.
Excuse me, is it not necessary to list encumbrances in this?
They're listed in the totals for each, so it's not necessary to break them out. They are part of the total appropriations for the year, but they are included in these totals.
So any appropriations beyond this year are not necessarily on here?
That's correct. So everything here was passed in 2023.
Okay.
Okay. So Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
For ordinance 2023-62, to dispense with the 3 reads, Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
For ordinance 2023-62, Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good. The next ordinance is ordinance 2023-63, an ordinance awarding the contract for the Oak Road Retention Pond Project to Stauffer Site Services LLC, lowest and best bidder, and as recommended by the village engineer, authorizing the administrator to enter into a contract with the same and declaring an emergency. In this case, we did not pass the ordinance for the appropriations, so this will be our first read for this ordinance.
Yeah, functionally, if no one moves to waive the first read, or the 3 reads.
Right.
Then this would just serve as the first read at
This
this
is
point.
the
We
first
can
read for
keep it
this.
with the other one.
I think that's correct. Okay. That's 2023-63. The next one is ordinance 2023-64. An ordinance adopting the 2024 appropriations of the general fund, enterprise funds, special revenue funds, and capital fund, and providing wage adjustments and declaring an emergency. Is there a motion for this ordinance?
So move.
Second.
And is there a motion to dispense with 3 reads?
So moved.
Second.
This should be, this reflects the budget as recommended by the Finance Committee to council from the Finance Committee meeting.
And this includes the fire department budget as well.
Yes, it does. It does.
And VPGI.
And VPGI. It does. So, I don't know that there's need really for explanation of what this is. I think everyone sat in the Finance Committee and we all agreed to this. There were certain questions about the fire department budget and spending for capital equipment or spending for equipment. I won't even just say capital equipment, I'll say spending for equipment. It was recommended, and the draft minutes reflect that that committee will meet again, and David will require some information or ask for some information, but go back and review both the need for the quantity of items and the type of items, and also do some research regarding what is really appropriate, and even possibly polling some other departments, what's typically done in these situations, because as one Finance Committee member said, that's the way we've always done it. Maybe that's not the right way. Okay, so we're going to look at it in total, bring that back to finance. At any time during the year, if it's decided we want to approach some of these things in a different way, we can. But for now, we're approving the budget as recommended by the Finance Committee, since it was, and further work will be done throughout the year with a fair gauge for village funds, appropriate spending, and what the fire department's needs are. So any further questions or discussion about this particular ordinance? You look like there's a question in there.
I am curious as to, well, look, whether it's necessary to request a emergency action on this. I don't know that it's an emergency, and if it were to move into the next year, next council meeting, by that time, or we would have a decision based on the questions that you just described.
Possibly would, possibly not. David's kind of doing a deep dive into that particular research as one point. I'm not very concerned about coming back because the dollars have been allocated. I do not expect we'll come back needing more dollars. It could be a reduction. I would say that this should be treated as an emergency for 2 reasons. One, we want to start the year being able to have our payroll go out on time in the amounts that we have changed or made changes to. Anything that needs to be purchased during the first month, we'd like to be able to do that. And the committee, and the Finance Committee, all of the department heads and the individual committees spent a lot of time forecasting where we would be at the end of the year in an effort to be able to make this, pass this budget tonight so that on January 1, we're ready to go and we have no further questions about our budget. David and I, along with others, but I can speak to David and I, spent many hours making our projections so that we could know where we would be.
Okay.
So there is, there's a motion on the table and a motion to dispense with the 3 reads, and there's one more question.
So, just to make sure we understand the nuts and bolts of this, the issue was the 50,000. There were only 5 VPGI items this year, for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue we discussed at length was the $50,000 for the 10 sets of turnout gear.
Correct.
If Scott and BJ and David inventory all of that, and we do not need the full 10 sets,
Mm-hmm.
would we then have to go back to, with fire, then have to kick it to finance and kick it
No.
back to council?
No, no. if you want to spend less, you can spend less, and we always encourage that if you can get by with it. What they will do is do their research, some of what you've described, and then come back to Finance Committee and say, okay, here's where we are now.
The issue would be if they needed more than 10 cents.
If they need more, then we'll have to come back and appropriate more dollars.
Okay.
But what we'd like to do is set a process by which we purchase this equipment. And not say, well, we've always done it this way, so we're gonna keep doing it this way. And it's kind of been, David has found it's been a little bit all over the board, and other departments have different ways of handling it that could potentially be very beneficial to the village and the village finances. So I think it behooves us to say, let's pass this budget, let the fire department and the committee and the administrator do their work and see if they can save some money beyond what we've already appropriated. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
I understand that it's imperative relative to payroll, et cetera, for all of the departments. But because there's a question in one department, we're not able to postpone the decision so we don't affect all the other departments. But
Yeah, I'd like to not affect all the other departments. I'd like to also say this, and I don't know, I'm not trying to guilt trip anybody, but it's kind of the way I like to operate. I want to trust the fire department and that committee and the people to work their way through this. We've asked the question, we're at the 11th hour for the budget, and I'd like to see if there is a way they can find some savings. Or a different process to do that, to appropriate or a different process to purchase and acquire the gear that is needed.
all right.
So that's my approach. But obviously, this body will decide what we're going to do. If there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Okay, Madam Clerk?
To dispense with the three reads on ordinance 2023-64. Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
For ordinance 2023-64. Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. The report from Mayor, Village Administrator, and Standing Committee. So I will start with the Mayor's report.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I wonder if I could just say a couple of words here, just to apologize to everyone for not being able to be present for this meeting. And I'm certainly looking forward to continuing my work as mayor for the remainder of my term, and I assure you I will do everything I can to carry out those responsibilities.
We have
It's all yours.
We have full faith that you will, and we look forward to your return to the podium here in January. Thanks, Don. Okay, so for the mayor's report, there were 2 deaths in the village and no births reported. The people who passed away this past month were Eve Morrow, age 93, passed away November 6th, and Russell Williams, age 89, passed away on November 15th. Can we have a moment of silence, please, for those 2 individuals? May they rest in peace. So, village news for this past month. A couple of things going on. Thanksgiving Day, several residents, about 100, gathered in the square for a 5K run walk, loosely but expertly organized by Pete and Kristen Stackpole. And this was maybe, how many, 5th year they did this, Will?
I think it's 6, actually.
6th year, okay. There were coffee and donuts for all set up in the village square, and several of us ran. Some of us probably shouldn't have, but we did. And a lot of walkers. Fleet Feet Glendale provided gift cards, $10 gift cards for all the participants, which I thought was nice. And Bluebird, as always, provided 2 pies for first and second place finishers. Will and I didn't come close to that.
Next year.
Scott Morgan was pushing his son and his nephew, and by golly, they beat him by a lot.
Sure did.
The only improvement that I heard came from my own daughter, who finished 3rd. And she said there should be a trophy for first place female finisher. So, because she wanted a pie. But it was a great event, and they do a wonderful job with that. So come out next year if you're not doing anything at 8 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day. Also, on December 2nd was the Holiday Home Tour, organized and coordinated by Harry Whiting Brown Community Center, led by Linda D'Amato, and it was just a terrific event. There were 8 generous residents who opened their homes for the tour. And I did not go, but I understand they were decorated wonderfully and really put on a good show for Glendale. It was very well attended. At one point, I heard there were 600 registered, and then someone told me tonight there were 750 people registered to tour the homes.
Wow.
And the Glendale streets were
Gridlock.
alive with holiday reveling. It
Gridlock.
It was great. It was great. So that was really, really nice. Upcoming is the Village Christmas on December the 9th from 4 to 9:30 in the Village Square and on the grounds of HWB Community Center. There'll be children and family activities, horse and carriage rides, food, a performance by the Glendale Children's Choir. I didn't know there was one, so I'm looking forward to hearing that. And under the tent, live music and drinks for the adults. And I've heard a visit from Santa Claus.
Of course.
So somewhere, probably in the village. Glendale Heritage Preservation currently has a Christmas display with in the Village Depot with a model train set and a very nice Christmas tree. And as always, the Black Squirrel Shop is open with holiday gifts and Christmas or Glendale themed gifts. The community of the Transfiguration has said they will open the Transfiguration Spiritual Center on their grounds on December 13th from 10 to 2 for people to come out and do their Christmas cards. They say it's a quiet, nice, reflective place, and they'll also offer lunch. And then the Village Gardeners of Glendale have their annual winter fundraiser going on, Christmas and holiday wreaths and table settings. Check last Friday's village email for the link to who to contact for placing your order for those items.
Pat Becker.
Pat Becker?
Yep.
Okay. I saw
Patricia
2, Pat Becker, and there was another one.
Joan, do you recall which?
What's up?
VGG's holiday.
What's it do?
Yeah, well, when does it do? It'd be a good question, but who do we contact? But it's in the village email, and there's a link. There's a link.
Becker.
Patricia Becker.
Patricia Becker, Warwick.
On
She's
Warwick.
in charge of it, yeah.
Gotcha. So that's your good contact. So place your order now for holiday delivery. And that is it for the mayor's report. Is there a village administrator's report?
There is, thank you. As we talked about earlier, the Hedgerow Albion work is scheduled to begin in January. Residents in that area will be receiving the second of 2 direct mail notices informing them of timelines, traffic closures, those kinds of things as a result of that work. The village's final audit report was released, and and it showed, in the words of the auditors themselves, significant improvement over the village's 2019-2020 audit. So very happy to hear that. A lot of improvements, and we will be having a 1-year audit next year for 2023 to cement all of the changes that were made. Despite what might have been said during public comment tonight, a copy of that audit is available on our website and was linked in the Friday email newsletter. If you go to our website, under departments, you'll see Village Financial Reports. It's listed there along with a cover memo that explains each item in the report. So it's unfortunate that that's not being checked, but it is up and visible. The sidewalk grinding work that is being paid for in large part by a Hamilton County Public Health grant, $35,000 total, is underway right now. They started in Heatherington this morning. They'll be continuing over the next few weeks, weather permitting. So if you see them out, don't panic. They're making the village's sidewalks safer. And finally, I'd like to take a few minutes and thank Sally, Spencer, and Denise in my office for all their hard work this year. I think that they're the reason that we got as much done as we did, and I'm very happy with where we've ended the year, and I'm looking forward to 2024 and all the things that we're going to get done. So, thank you.
Well said, David. Madam Clerk, will you call the committee reports?
Absolutely. Finance Committee, please.
That's me again. So the Finance Committee did meet, and the budget that was passed tonight was the work of the Finance Committee in that meeting. And we will meet again, and I will schedule that meeting via email.
Thank you. Fire Committee, please.
Fire Committee met on November 9, covered a pretty broad spectrum of things. Operating matters, EMS updates, strategic planning, talked about the new fire truck. And then, of course, focused heavily on the 2024 budget. And in particular, the expenses we face as we work to bring the department to a new professional standards, focused on service to the community and safety of all firefighters. We have new visibility to what that means and how that impacts the budget, which is part of some of the things we talked about tonight. Anyways, a good meeting, as always, and I'm happy to turn it over now to Assistant Chief Lehrman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chief Eigel had sent out the monthly report, so you all should have received that today. November was another busy month for us. Hose testing was completed on all the fire hose. We did have a few sections that failed, but that's common with the age of the hose. Both fire trucks went and had their pumps tested. Those both passed in flying colors, so we're happy to report that. And amongst several trainings that our folks attended through the month of November. For the month of December, kind of business as usual. We don't really have a whole lot on our agenda for the month of December. However, we are looking forward to the 9th, this coming Saturday, to deliver Santa to the village Christmas event. So we will be there in support of that. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Laws and Claims, please.
Laws and Claims Committee did not meet. I take this opportunity to express my thanks to the Village of Glendale, to Council. I will be departing Council as my term ends, and I do want to sincerely thank everyone with whom I have served while serving as the legislator, as the clerk, and as the treasurer. I also thank many individuals outside of Glendale who have been exceedingly helpful. For sure, all has not been very rosy in serving on council, and there's room for coping with disappointments as a legislator, and there's room for substantive improvements. For me, I'd like to emphasize one area which we've talked about a little this evening, fortuitously, and that is the need for an audit committee of competent experts independent of village government to advise council on the village's financial pictures, internal controls, and financial risk. It's a lot to be done, and at times we can't do it during the finance committee meetings or during council meetings. So this remains a need that needs to be looked into further. A second area we've also talked about again fortuitously this evening, and that is the village's age-old water pipes and sewage treatment systems. So I'm leaving my colleague Jeff with the knowledge that he will pursue this as he has been doing and make further progress. Thank you. Third and lastly, I'd like to emphasize the village government's relationships with residents, especially during council and committee meetings, and the need to collaboratively work with other municipalities, especially here in the valley. I'm taking this time to say this in my farewell address. It is a summation of where I would spend my energies if I were still here. It doesn't matter whether I'm here or not. The needs are genuine. A new day dawns for me, and once again, I thank all of you with whom I have served, most of all the residents of Glendale, for giving me the opportunity on council to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
And from all of council, administration, and I'm sure the residents as well, thank you for your service on village council and your prior service as clerk and treasurer. I know those are all unpaid positions, and you do it because you believe in your community and you want to serve. So thank you very much. I'm assuming you'll be here in January for the January meeting?
Don't assume.
Don't assume, okay. But with that, and just in case, why don't we give Marilyn a round of applause for her service. Okay.
Thank you. Police committee, please.
Excuse me, the police committee did meet on November 9th, and we went over the budget at length, which we also, that came up obviously in the finance meeting a little bit tonight. The Chief Walsh, the good news, Chief Walsh is fully staffed with full-time and part-time officers. Good job by him finding the crew this year. And it was it looks like about a 6.3% increase for next year for the budget. And the two VPGI items were the new computer replacements for the cruisers, and we get a new cruiser next year with upfitting. So is that every third year, every second, every other year that we replace? Every other. So next year will be that year. And we also discussed Mayor's Court, that budget, and believe that's it. So I'll turn it over to the chief.
Thank you, sir. The only thing I have left is on Wednesday the 6th, Fleet Feet will be holding a first responders night for the fire department, police department, village officials. Anybody who wants to come is more than welcome. It'll be from 5 to 7 down at Fleet Feet. They'll have pizza, some other giveaways, some discounts, things like that. And also, I forgot to mention the fire department. They will also be assisting us in Shop of the Hero.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Second year in a row. No problem.
Okay. Great.
Thank you. Public buildings and historic preservation.
Public buildings also met in November 15th, and the buildings, the list goes on far too long to talk about here, so I will post those minutes. I have a few more questions for David before we get the draft minutes posted. But it's about a 6.6% increase next year on that budget. There's a little give and take there with some of the lease payback, the give back that we get, but a ballpark about a 6% increase. So we all know where inflation's gone for us this year, so and probably next. So again, higher than previous years, but if we can keep it to about 6%, we're never satisfied, but we'll be accepting of that. David, I do need to talk to you about the kitchenette and the carpet for the quotes, and so that's before I send out the draft minutes.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
And that is it.
Thank you. Recreation and playgrounds, please.
Yes, I apologize for the tickle in my throat. That happened while you were talking. Tried my best to hide it. We met, Recreation Playgrounds met the 15th, and those draft minutes should be posted online. Primary topics discussed were the budget. We briefly went over things happening at the parks, what is on the to-do list, things that are kind of up next and expected to happen soon. We discussed a new fee scale and policy for rental of public spaces in light of some challenges, partly with how those things are billed and also just usage. We need some more time to think about that, so no decisions were made about that. briefly discussed renaming the committee to Parks and Rec instead of Recreation and Playgrounds. Maybe we'll be hearing about that in the future, but it just seems cleaner.
It's a TV show, isn't it?
Yes, and I'm after a T-shirt, so. No, it does seem to make sense. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Streets, public improvements, and lights.
The Streets Committee did meet. We went through our budget, and then that budget was recommended to the Finance Committee. Also did a little bit of reporting out on our gas light situation, that it's greatly improved over what we initially thought, because the one benefit of Duke Energy increasing capacity of the gas lines is that it affects the street lights. And David rightly told Duke, if you come in here and change how my street lights function, and they won't function properly with this increased gas capacity, you're gonna have to rebuild them, and they are. So we'll go through the globe replacement, we'll go through the ones that are broken and need to be stood back up. But the internals that you see, that if some of them are being rebuilt, that's being done on Duke's dime. So, thanks for David for pushing that issue. And then the other thing that we're looking at on the gas lights is possibly an outside service that would take care of our lights. There is a service in town. Dave is waiting for pricing from them for an annual contract. They service all of Greater Cincinnati, including Clifton, Hyde Park, and some others. And I think it would be a situation where if they have the expertise, they have the inventory and their stock, it won't be a situation where someone runs into a gas light with a car and you have to call the machine shop, the plumber, the lighting guy, all that. It could be a one-stop shop for us. So we'll get that pricing and see if that'll be helpful. That's it for streets.
Thank you. Utilities, please.
Yes, utilities did meet, and the entire meeting was spent in reviewing the 2024 budget. And that we reviewed it more thoroughly, I think, than any of the past occasions that I have been involved in it. We went through the revenues and through the expenses very thoroughly, and it looks like the enterprise will come close to meeting its objective or its goal this year. We have 1 more or 2 more months of numbers, that is November and December, to confirm, but the next problem will be 2024. So we will go from there, and we'll address that again in December.
Okay. Next on the agenda is reports from the clerk and from the treasurer. Madam Clerk, do you have a report?
I do. I have a brief one. As David mentioned earlier, we had the meeting with the auditor, and there's one finding that comes up and people talk about because it's a thing, and that is the statement that the village does not meet GAAP requirements. Okay. The only thing is because we're doing budgeting and finances on a cash basis because we're smaller, and we can do that. And that deviates from GAAP, but it does not mean that we're wrong. So I want to make sure that as you talk to residents, now that the audit report is out there, even though it says we don't meet standards, it doesn't mean anything's bad regarding GAAP. So I just want to make sure we have a consistent message on that.
I believe the phrase is something like judging a fish based on its ability to climb a tree.
Yeah.
So we just don't play that way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, GAAP rules really do not apply to a cash basis account.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we're exempt from that.
Yeah.
But the audit has to say we don't meet that. Is there a report from the treasurer? I know that there is.
Yes, so everyone should have received a copy of our investment report for November. Still looks pretty good. And some of you, I think I've shared that we're hoping that we'll be very close end the year with almost 300,000 in total revenues in investments from check-in in Huntington. So in looking back, that looks like that might be our record ever.
I think you're right.
So hopefully we'll continue down that path. Looking at some other investments that are going to be coming up here, that hoping that we'll be able to buy some of those to continue on that trend. So since we need that money in VPGI, I think that's good news.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
for that report.
And this is the last time we're seeing Fifth Third on the monthly report?
Yes, and the other thing you'll see is the fees will be better for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent work. Okay, we've all received some financial reports. October 2023 financial report from the administrator, and the November 2023 Huntington operating check register. Did that go out? Yes?
What's that? Yes.
That went out also. So is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of those reports?
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then I will now entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Good work.